But it is still waiting.
Alright, I swear to God, the next upload was supposed to be the IDK show episode 2. But, then I look in my comments section, I hear this guy saying, Deltarune tomorrow. And I see another guy saying, Deltarune tomorrow. And, I think nothing of it at first. I think it's just like schizophrenics in my comments section. But then I go into my Discord and everybody's saying, Deltarune tomorrow. And I was like, well, if chapter 5 was coming out, I would have seen it. And I go on for a couple of hours, and then my subscription feed all of a sudden just comes up with this. They tried to stop me, but they forgot that I'm him. 2 weeks? I'm gonna make this video in 3 fucking days! If you're seeing this video, I either did that or this is my suicide note. Anyways, Deltarune Chapter 5. I got a couple of ideas about this thing that's coming on. Alright, let's go ahead and cut the head off the snake. Stop yapping. Let's get to the central idea of this video. So something has stuck me about Chapter 5 of Deltarune ever since the revival and then impromptu second killing of the Spamton sweepstakes. If you recognize this website, you'll probably know what I'm referring to. This page on the Deltarune sweepstakes, deltarune.com/chapter 5, has always intrigued me. Now, you could go on and on about how this is kind of an analogy metaphor for the weird route's relevance to each chapter, but that's not what I want to cover here. I want to cover the fact that there's only ever been 5 chapters here. Now, ever since the site was discovered, people have theorized because of this that the weird route would end in chapter 5, which is interesting. Even more interesting that the URL for this website is chapter 5. Like, that's a little bit odd, right? Like, this website includes all of the chapters before 5, so why is chapter 5 being used like this umbrella for all other chapters? In fact, even the way Toby treats chapter 5 as its own, like, thing in the newsletters and marketing is also very interesting. He's been very insistent that he wanted it to be a package deal with 3 and 4, to the point of which, on release, it's a free update to the other 2 chapters, which is interesting, right? Because I feel like chapter 4 was a really good cinematic ending and a good place to end a sort of duology for Deltarune for a little bit. And I'm definitely thinking way too much about this, but it's also very interesting how Toby has kept chapter 5 in such lock and key for the longest time. I mean, the most we ever had from the newsletters before this trailer was this fucking balloon. I mean, yeah, it's honestly not that much more than chapter 4 got, but like, I don't know. Something always read is a bit off to me about this chapter. And here's the other thing, because there's something else really interesting about this chapter. It's also the final chapter of Lord of the Hammer. A lot of people focus on Gerson's foreshadowing of chapter 5 with the things he says about it, but what not a lot of people focus on is the fact that it's the final chapter. Chapters 6 and 7 were unfinished in Gerson's book. They were never written. And that's the second instance so far of chapter 5 being an end. And if it was just these 2 instances, I mean, it'd be very strange, certainly a call for a bit of an investigation, but there's more. You see, the Shadow Crystal quest is also ending in chapter 5. There's only one more Shadow Crystal to find, and Sham seems to imply we're going to find it next chapter. So, again, chapter 5 is the end. And it doesn't even stop there. Even the fucking Forgotten Man seems to end after chapter 5. He gives us instructions on where to find him in all of the first 5 chapters, but after that, well, he just gives us this cryptic bullshit. Hold your breath, head to the left, and count backwards to 100. And guess what? It doesn't even fucking stop there. There is this weird text that you can, it's really fucking hard to find, about rules in Queen's Mansion. Let me read it out for you.
Now I know you all are loving my mansion, but we have few rules you must follow. 1. Wipe your shoes. 2. Have fun. 3. Respect the pottery. 4. Have fun. 5. List entry duplication error.
Okay, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm known for overlooking into things, but this is weird, right? Like, if it was just 1, 2, or maybe even 3 times that this happened, you could explain it away, but like, this is happening 5 times. And some of these elements are very real plot beats that are being foreshadowed to end in chapter 5. So, what the fuck is happening here? Why is chapter 5 being put out as an ending? Well, there's some more interesting context we gotta get into first. You see, because the festival is tomorrow. I don't know about you, but I find that to be very interesting. Incredibly interesting, as a matter of fact. The way they were foreshadowing this festival thing, I would have thought it would be somewhere near towards like the final chapter of Deltarune. The festival is a big deal, and I think a lot of people in the theorist community have not treated it as such. You see, when talking about Chapter 5, everybody thinks, oh, Flower King. Flower King's gonna be the next chapter, it's gonna be in Asgore's shop, and, well, I mean, Chapter 5's trailer proved that to definitely not be wrong. While looking at the trailer, I don't know, I think I found something else that's very important about this chapter's Dark World. You see, every chapter thus far has had some form of escapism be the theme of each Dark World. Religion, television, the internet, fantasy. And I think this chapter's no different. I think the theme of escapism we're going to be focusing on is ceremony. The ceremony in specific is the festival. This chapter just feels so festive. The trailer makes it feel so festive. Even the way Toby talks about it, which I'm going to get into later. The music, the flower petals, everything feels like a celebration. And, well, yes, it's most likely this Dark World will take place inside of Asgore's shop. I still think that it will be influenced by the festival regardless. And, well, the festival itself, I'll get to that later. The point is, it's a big deal, and this chapter is also a big deal. A lot of vital things are happening right now. Chris might have just confessed the entire conspiracy to Susie. We're most likely going to see Noelle re-enter a Dark World for the first time in 2 whole chapters. Asgore's part of the conspiracy is going to have to be revealed in some way, and the fucking White Pen of Hope is here, apparently! Big things are happening this chapter, which is why Toby's description of it is so interesting.
In Chapter 4, we saw dark clouds on the horizon. That's why, let's not look there for now. Let's turn around and watch the sun, before it goes down completely. Let's smile again. Let's have one more fun adventure, okay? In my opinion, it fits well in the overall story of the game.
Now, you could take Toby at his word, and I'd call you an idiot, because Deltarune is a very meta kind of game. Every plot beat it's had has some kind of meta-analysis that you can look into it. What Toby Fox is doing here is a return to form. It's a trope quite common in a lot of dramedies like Deltarune. It's returning back to the simple, the classic adventures without any of the heavy, high-strung, emotional dread and drama. However, a majority of the time, this comes with a subversion, and based on all of the critical plot points coming to a head here, I believe this subversion will be quite large. But on another note, fuck you, I was right! Pink and Gold is back well again and very important to this chapter, so as the Pink and Gold guy, I naturally have a few things to say about this. Most important being, I think this proves everything I said in that video to be right. The color motif of Pink and Gold being a general resemblance of hope, I think embodies this chapter so well. In the video of mine that nobody wants to watch because the audio balancing is equivalent to a fucking Caillou Go Animate video.
What are you doing out on this rural road? Grounded, grounded, grounded.
Ooh oh ho hoo oh. No daddy, you are the one who is grounded. Go to your room right this instant.
Wah 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 wah.
I said that Cyber City and its subtle motifs of pink and gold, okay, some less than subtle, are to represent the growing hope in the game in this chapter and the beginning of freedom as well. And I think something like that is happening in this chapter just to a much, much larger effect. I mean, the fucking White Pen of Hope is here. How Toby describes it is at the very least Susie trying to find her hope in the Dark Worlds again. The adventure is reminiscing back to Chapter 1 to try and pull on nostalgia and remember the good times of the Dark Worlds. At the same time, freedom is brimming. The Shadow Crystals, the Weird Route, even the fucking Forgotten Man, whatever they're all climaxing towards, if anything, it's starting to crescendo here. Pink and gold. Now, let's dive back from the pink and gold for a second to focus on the other part of Gerson's line, the Inferno. Deltarune is getting more serious. It's getting to a critical point, and I don't think we can ignore that. And I think this is represented perfectly by the Inferno charring the Garden of Hope and Freedom. So, what is the Inferno? I think I know, but first, let's go over some facts that might make it more clear. YouTuber Nighthawk made an amazing video about how the festival is most likely a religious ceremony. I'd recommend you go check that out, but just keep that factoid in the back of your mind right now. Secondly, as chapters 3 and 4 have proven, Deltarune is a game of rapidly rising stakes. Charlie has cut the brakes and there is no slowing down now.
Guys, why aren't the brakes working?
Because I cut the brakes! Wild card, bitches!
What? Holy shit! Oh, God! Oh, my God! Oh, God! Christ, guys, I can't stop this fast! Aboard! Aboard! What? Go!
Mastersfield steps up. 8 stroke final lead. Hole number 17, 338 yards, dogleg left.
Oh, God damn it! What the hell, man?
We have fought the Knight, and we have fought a fucking Titan. Where do the stakes go from here? While I don't doubt that Asgore will be the next final boss, I don't think that fighting him is as high as the stakes will be raised. Thirdly, I think, maybe, Azrael might be coming back to town. Now, this is definitely the claim I have the least proof for, but I think there's some evidence for it. Just give me a second. Now, yes, Toriel did say Azrael will come back next week, and it's only been 4 days, so that's a bit of a weird way to say it if he's coming back today. And nobody's preparing for Azrael's arrival. Fucking Toriel got Leahy levels of shit-faced yesterday, so I don't think that she thinks her son's coming home tomorrow. However, tomorrow is the festival. It's like the biggest deal in hometown. If Azrael was coming back home for anything, you'd think he'd want to come back home to see this, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe he just hates the festival. It's not entirely implausible with the way he's been characterized. Well, another thing of note is that since Chapter 3 took place overnight, it's impossible for a full week to pass through the course of Deltarune without major pace breaks or time skips between chapters. Well, I mean, that's assuming we have the 7 chapters Toby told us about and he hasn't got like another 48 chapters hidden up his ass somewhere. What's even weirder is like the way the chapters are scheduled in-game. If Azrael doesn't come back in Chapter 5, he would be coming back on a weekday, which is a little weird, right? He's in college. You're assuming if he's gonna come back for something, it would be like a holiday or on a weekend or something. I mean, I guess he could be getting out for summer break, but even then, that's a bit strange to get out on a fucking Monday. So, here's the idea. I think Azrael's gonna show up to the festival to surprise his family, and I think this very well might be what triggers Asgore's reign, and also maybe the Inferno of Jealousy. Alright, that's everything. Let's lay the cards out on the table. Firstly, Azrael's return has been something that we've been theorizing about since Chapter 1, when fucking MatPat was the biggest theorizer for this game, that would be the nexus point of everything. The catalyst that would cause the end of, like, the game. Secondly, the festival is religious, right? But Hometown's religion is the prophecy. So, therefore, it's pretty rational to assume that the festival is celebrating some sort of big event happening in the prophecy. That on this day, something big is supposed to happen. And, well, remember what I said about those raising stakes, and I think things are starting to become clear. Okay, so you know how we all been calling the Roaring Knight the Roaring Fraud? Can't start the fucking roaring for shit? Okay, I'm about to say something pretty controversial here, okay? But just hear me out. What if the Roaring Knight isn't a roaring fraud? Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. No, not the tomato, not the... I fucking hate all of you people so much. I'm gonna burn this fucking world to the ground. Remember what I said earlier about how all Dark Worlds have had some sort of a theming of escapism thus far? Well, what if that wasn't actually a thematic decision, but instead an actual in-universe mechanic of how Dark Worlds work? What if you couldn't actually make a Dark World without some form of television, internet, or church to power it? If you simply just went into an empty room and tried to make a Dark World, it wouldn't work. It's the natural care and energy and love that the Lighteners put into these objects, these ceremonies, these rituals that feeds the Dark World and allows it to bloom. So, in theory, if that love, that ceremony, that ritual was spreading throughout the entire town, could you not make a dark world in the middle of hometown that could draw off of all that energy enough to the point where it would devour all of hometown? A dark world based off the festival would take up the entire town. Very, very interesting. I haven't said it yet, but I think you all know as to what I'm referring to. I think Chapter 5 is going to end with the roaring. A bit early, I know, but it was also a bit early to fight a fucking titan last chapter and see the knight the prior one. It's almost the most natural equation you get from the rising of the stakes. And let's not pretend the stakes can't raise after the roaring here. There's clearly something much higher at play to be dealt with in Deltarune's final chapters. To me at least, this is really the only explanation I can find for why everything is crescendoing to an ending so fast. It's because they've ran out of time. Alright, let's go back to the Forgotten Man real quick, because he's really the only thing in Deltarune that has foreshadowed anything past Chapter 5, at least in theory. What he says on his schedule after Friday is very interesting in this context. To me at least, these instructions have kind of always read to help somebody like they were lost in like the deepest of darkness. Kind of like if you were in the abyss of the sea where you couldn't even tell what's up and what's down. Which, I mean, for obvious reasons sounds a lot like how the roaring has been described. It's also very interesting because 2 out of 3 of the commands that the Forgotten Man is giving here have already been done in this chapter specifically. Heading to the left was how we got here in the first place, and later on in the night fight of this chapter, there is an option called Hold Breath. Some people have said that the window that the Forgotten Man is behind in Chapter 4 is window 100, and that calls back to the count backwards to 100 thing, but I'm just gonna be honest, I haven't seen any solid evidence of that, and for right now, I don't believe that. I don't trust Reddit. Redditors are not real people. They are lying bug people. They are bug people, not real people. Bug people. As of right now, I think during a night rematch, very possibly, we will have the chance to hold breath again, and if we've done the necessary requirements like we did in Chapter 3, or maybe if we just save onto that trip ticket, we will be able to hold to the left and fuck off. It has some very interesting implications, especially with the knight's relation to the man behind the tree, but for now, who knows? Okay. So that was the big idea I had, but I do have some more ideas for Chapter 5 that are also kind of worth going over in this video. Obviously, Chapter 5 is very friend-coded. It's quite interesting. And with my whole mega theory last time, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Incoming spoiler warning for that theory, so please go check it out. Trust me, it's worth your time. That might be one of my best videos yet. Anyway, spoilers be damned. If Friend is the final roaring titan, as I predicted in that video, I think this is definitely going to be a very friend-focused chapter, towards the end at least. And what I mean by that is I think I can very safely lock in for the fact that I think this chapter will be the first time Friend has any sort of actual plot relevance, actually says something, or anything that actually starts to really characterize him besides the tiny little tidbits we've gotten thus far. I feel pretty safe in locking that in now. If Friend's ever going to have like major story relevance as a character to Deltarune, I think it's going to start happening here. Secret boss wise, I mean, I think there's still a decent chance that, you know, Woody Harrelson could show up in Deltarune. I think Woody Harrelson has a great chance. Personally, I've never seen Woody Harrelson in anything else before, so it'd be quite interesting to see him in Deltarune, but I think Woody Harrelson is he's a lock-in pick. Though in my last video, I did kind of imply that Sham might be the next secret boss, and I think they definitely fit with the whole depression angle of this secret boss fitting amongst the stages of grief, which I really think there's something there. But if it's not Sham who's fitting of depression, which would make sense because they don't have that fucking why would they send us to go looking for the Shadow Crystal if they had the Shadow Crystal? That makes no fucking sense. It really could be anyone. If anything that chapters 3 and 4 have taught us, it's to be weary about your predictions, especially when it comes to secret bosses. So, you know, aside from Woody Harrelson, it could just be Friend could just be the secret boss. I did have an idea, which wasn't really fleshed out. It kind of like came to me in a dream, if I remember correctly, that like Friend would be the secret boss, and Friend would, instead of giving you a shadow crystal, give you a pure crystal. But that was just an idea I had. If that comes true, you know, I predicted that. Actually, I predicted that. I knew it was gonna happen all along. But honestly, secret boss wise, we really know nothing here. The weird route is obviously starting to get a bit out of control. I think we're very liable to see Noelle start to take her next victim, and if I had to guess, I'd probably say it's Chris to go next. I feel like the weird rat's definitely inevitably gonna have a fight against Susie, but I feel like we're gonna have to save that for a later chapter at this point. Okay, now I'm just kind of yapping. I do have one more thing that I think is a pretty big prediction for a certain character upcoming next this chapter. Now this one is a big deal. I think you all know who I'm about to talk about. That's right, BERDLY. Now, this might be my most schizophrenic theory in a while, but trust me, there's something here. I have a strong inclination, and maybe it is just cope, that BERDLY will be surprisingly relevant this upcoming chapter. Now, before you start calling me a currently shipper, because I am one, I actually have some pretty decent evidence for this. Because first off, let's look at BERDLY's role in the story of Deltarune, because it's weird. Narrative-wise, BERDLY seemed to have had his arc and finished it in Chapter 2, but the following chapters have proved that not to be the case. With him thinking everything was a dream, he seems to have just gone back to old behaviors. He's still changed slightly on the inside, but his insecurities make him refuse to ever show that to people on the outside. And it's a really weird place to leave off the character. On top of that, it's also really weird when you consider that BERDLY is the only Lightner thus far to have had a serious role in a Dark World. Like, if Caddy and Jockington never show up in a Dark World as like pseudo party members, which at this point I think it's just kind of too late for that, it leaves BERDLY as such like a sore thumb sticking out amongst the rest. Like, think about it, he was an insanely relevant character to Chapter 2, whose arc's basically unfinished, and is the only Lightner to really have done anything relevant in a Dark World. Undyne and Toriel basically did nothing in their chapter, Toriel sleeping the whole time, and Undyne just showing up way too late to have any relevance. And I mean, sure, it does look like Asgore's about to steal everyone's spotlight in this next Dark World, but even then, it's still a little weird, right? Like, I know for a fact I was not the only person surprised playing throughout Chapter 2 and realizing that you never play BERDLY. Like, BERDLY is designed very intentionally to seem like he becomes one of the party members. Like, he fits in perfectly with the rest of them, same size, same age, same class. And I mean, yeah, sure, he was like the rival character, but the fucking entire previous chapter was about getting a party member who was the rival character. And I just can't say the same for Asgore. Like, Asgore is literally designed to be a boss monster. Like, you just look at him standing next to the party and you see what I mean. He wouldn't fit on the fucking UI battle screen. But BERDLY, however, he fits in just like fucking perfectly. And especially in the same chapter where we got a new party member with Noelle, it's just so strange to me that unless it was like a cut, that BERDLY never joined the party. And it just becomes so much stranger if no other of Chris's classmates get the same position as BERDLY. Like, Chapter 2 seemed very much designed to set up a pattern of classmates joining Chris and Susie in the Dark World for an adventure, which of course wasn't true, which makes the choosing of BERDLY and Noelle very specific and feel more important. Now, Noelle is obvious, Noelle is a fucking important as shit character, but BERDLY on the other hand just feels so out of place here. I mean, I guess he does kind of mirror Lancer's position from Chapter 1, but even then, Lancer continues to come back and be a member of the party even if you can't play him. And this is where my suspicions started, but as I started to actually look into this and actually think about this, some more interesting patterns emerged. I didn't really find much evidence for anything, just insanely perfect puzzle pieces that fit together ungodly well for them to be coincidence. And to understand this, we need to both understand BERDLY as a character and understand BERDLY on the weird route. You see, BERDLY is a character dictated by his insecurities. He doesn't want to be forgotten, pushed into the background and irrelevant. He wants to be someone. He wants to be a smart person. He wants to be somebody people looks up to. It's why he's so brash and acts so arrogant. God, I really want to do a video on BERDLY. Hopefully, I probably will. We'll see. Anyways, this is what makes his position in the weird route so fucking perfectly and tragically ironic. Sure, BERDLY survives what should have been a fatal wound, but nobody cares. Not even his own parents have come to visit him in the hospital. Seemingly nobody even noticed BERDLY was missing, which that validating his insecurities seems to explain a lot of his behavior. But you gotta think about it really. BERDLY was not like rushed to the hospital by anybody. He was left alone in that library for God knows how long, in a fucking critical state. There was probably time where somebody could have saved him, but he was just left there. Not even Miss Boom, the owner of the property, would notice that the place probably wasn't locked up and that there was a child dying inside. Even after the watch incident and the truth of Snowgrave becoming more clear to her, Noelle doesn't even think to go check on BERDLY. And this isn't to admonish her, but just to acknowledge the simple fact that the thought of BERDLY didn't even cross her mind. When Susie sees him in a coma, she just kind of laughs it off. And his parents are nowhere to be seen. In fact, the only person in Hometown who seems to give a semblance of a shit about BERDLY's well-being during this route is Chris. Chris was the one who brought him to the hospital, and in Chapter 4, albeit through the player's control, even looks after him. Currently confirmed. But even then, I have the sneaking inclination that Chris wouldn't have done any of this if they weren't actively guilty for Berdly's current state and saw it with their own eyes. The game itself almost refuses to bring up the topic of Berdly. Not only on a more general level, but on a more meta level, he has been forgotten. The exact thing he didn't want to happen, the exact thing that his insecurities have been telling him, has been validated. There's something very ballsy about the ability to walk away from the weird route during Chapter 4. The game, and by extension the prophecy, kind of pretends that everything's gonna go back to normal now, that we have avoided the consequences of the weird route, but Berdly is still in the hospital. It's almost like a brazen admittance to whatever running the prophecy that Berdly is unimportant. There's not a word mentioned of Berdly in the prophecy itself, which, all things considered, isn't too odd. However, when you put this all together, it's certainly interesting. It's interesting that not only the game itself has overlooked Berdly, but us as a community have also overlooked Berdly. Everyone in his life seems to have overlooked him. He seems to have been forgotten. And does that not remind you of anyone? There are a surprising amount of parallels between Berdly and Spamton and Jevil and December. All people who have been forgotten. All people who have been given shadow crystals. Except for Gerson, he's kind of an outlier. Now, I'm not saying that Berdly is going to get a shadow crystal. I'm not shutting down the idea, I'm just trying to point out the parallels. I think it's just very interesting that Berdly is a character who we've seen going from having the limelight to being completely forgotten by the game in real time. And this isn't just in the weird route as well, it's in every route. We've seen Berdly slowly distance himself from Chris, Noelle, and Susie, and fall back into old habits. Everything he's learned has been unceremoniously removed from him, and he's regressed into the person he was before. If you're asking me what Berdly's role in the story is, it's that he doesn't have one, or at the very least, he isn't supposed to have one. Berdly is quite interestingly referred to as the bluebird of misfortune, which is just something I've always found to be such an interesting moniker. The wording lends a surprising amount of tragedy to the character, which I just haven't seen yet, until you look at it from the grander perspective. Because in the larger picture of Deltarune, Berdly is just lost in the shuffle. In the large picture, he doesn't matter. All of this to me is just too perfect for a game developer like Toby Fox with a game like Deltarune to just ignore and not utilize at all. And granted, this isn't even really a theory at this point, this is just writing fanfiction, but I don't know. Something just feels incredibly off here. Berdly manages to almost mirror every member of our main cast and every Shadow Crystal holder we've seen thus far. And he fits in so well as a party member and as a character in the story that it's just almost weird he isn't used more often. And I get the basic idea that him being immobilized in the weird route kind of prevents him from future relevance in the regular route. But I don't know. Toby's never been one to shy away from the consequences of one's actions, and as of right now, I feel like there's a lot more that could happen with Berdly to emphasize that. I think the very idea that his state is not implicitly tied to the fate of the prophecy gives him the most freedom out of any character we've seen in Deltarune thus far. I think that him being overlooked by the prophecy or whatever's running it might be its biggest weak point. The very worst act shown in Deltarune rather consistently is the cold negligence of which you treat other people's fates. And I think it's very interesting that that exact thing could be the prophecy's biggest weakness. And somehow, out of all people, Berdly seems to center around all of it. Berdly will most likely be at tomorrow's festival, and out of every character in Hometown, I think he is the most unpredictable at the current moment. One of the more interesting pieces of foreshadowing about Chapter 5 has been given by Miss Mizzle, of all people. The bluest flower, a disciple of my speech, shy to no camera, and a specimen of elegance and kindness. Should you meet, please give my regards. Alongside this, the launch page for Deltarune has been adorned with blue flowers, rather strange considering its dedication to the pink and gold color palette. Now I know it's a fucking massive stretch, but when I think of these blue flowers, at least for me, the first thing that comes to mind is the blue board of misfortune. Now am I saying this blue flower is Berdly? No, hell no, that would be fucking dumb as shit. I really honestly don't think this actually leads anywhere back to Berdly, but it's just what I thought for the first time. Also, the blue flower thing is interesting. I want to see more people talk about that. Now, I'm not saying that Berdly will show up as like a party member of the next Dark World, or will be like the main antagonist of Deltarune or something, but like, all of this is here, and it's very interesting. It's something I haven't seen anybody else point out. Again, these are all just pieces of the puzzle, and they don't necessarily prove anything, but they all just fit a little bit too well together, a bit too perfectly, for at least in my opinion, them to all just be coincidence. I don't know. I guess we'll see. After all,
Deltarune is waiting.
alright, so that's about it for the video. You know, it's time for the unstoppable yap session. That is the end of these fucking videos. So yeah, I think that was pretty good. DELTARUNE Chapter 5 is coming out pretty soon. Stay tuned on this channel for that if you want to, because I'm probably gonna be streaming that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. In other channel news, June's hopefully going to be a busy month for this channel. I have probably 2 more uploads this month, which is pretty good for me. Haven't uploaded twice in a month since the fucking year ago now. Jesus Christ. Anyways, the IDK show episode 2, it's almost done. It's about to come out. And then I have, as I've said before, a BFDIA retrospective in the works. So that's also coming soon. So look forward to that. Also, it's been like almost a fucking year since I've covered anything BFDI teapot or like object show related. Jesus fucking Christ. So don't worry, I'm gonna come out with something some more of that sometime soon. Also, if you haven't noticed, YouTube's been just fucking me. Holy shit. It's become a platform-wide problem that view counts have just like halved for like all content creators, and that's been pretty bad for me when I was upcoming on the up and up. I mean, the last Digital Circus video did fucking horribly, holy shit. So, you know, if you could share or like and subscribe or do that stupid hype bullshit on the video, you know, it would be much appreciated. I'm trying to get this channel off the ground, and YouTube is a bitch and a half sometimes. And if you haven't watched any of the previous Deltarune theories, you know, go check them out. Go check them out. I don't know why you watched the entirety of this fucking video and you haven't seen them, but, you know, go check them out. I feel pretty, you know, relatively confident about everything coming into Chapter 5. I don't know. We'll see. You know, nobody's ever right about 100% about anything, but I feel like I got something there with that entire the fucking Neo Hell theory. The first video, the pink and gold video, I don't know, hasn't aged the best. There's some real good shit in there, but you know, we'll see. We'll see. I had some more things I wanted to go over about Nerdly, but I had to kind of cut them for time. The main thing was how the eggs from the Forgotten Man are being stored very specifically on BERDLY's desk, and that's a little bit strange. And also how birds are kind of weird in Deltarune's universe. Like, we know for a fact that birds are like an animal in the Deltarune universe, because the fucking bird cage. There's a whole weird thing going on with birds in both Deltarune and Undertale. Also, another thing I didn't bring up that makes me feel very confident about BERDLY's relevance is the dialogue you have with Susie after BERDLY hurts his arm. Susie was basically contemplating on whether or not to bring him into a dark world to heal his arm, so that would be very interesting to see get followed up on, and that would only back up my theory further. But yeah, I think Chapter 5 is going to be fucking insane, so look forward for me probably streaming the entirety of my gameplay of that fucking next chapter. That might be fun. Also, the IDK show hopefully episode 2 will come out before Deltarune, so look forward to that too. We'll see. Hopefully. Bye.